Fox News starts right now.
He was held at the Bexar County Jail on a non-violent parole violation for months, even as hundreds of people there contracted the deadly coronavirus.
Narciso Garcia has now been released, but his attorney tells Dylan Collier the fight to expose the improper treatment of Garcia and others now goes to federal court.
So it's important to bring this to light, and it's important to find out why this is happening.
And for Trey Moore, getting his client Narciso Garcia out of the Bexar County Jail was simply the first step. Garcia, a nonviolent offender, had been held without bond since early February on a parole violation related to a felony drug conviction, despite having an immune system disorder inside a facility that has become ground zero for the COVID-19 pandemic in San Antonio. After weeks of pressure, the state finally lifted its blue warrant against Garcia, allowing him to leave jail, but keeping him confined to home with an ankle monitor.
He's been sent home, and he's been sent home to live with his 80-year-old mother, who, as we know, is at high risk for this.
Last week, citing violations of Garcia's constitutional rights, Moore filed suit in federal court in Austin against the head of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice and several members of the State Board of Pardons and Paroles. Moore has asked the court to allow Garcia to self-isolate and receive treatments at a San Antonio VA hospital. As of today, there are 274 inmates inside the Bexar County Jail waiting to be transferred to state prisons or treatment facilities. That logjam has already cost Bexar County more than $622,000. With the temporary ban on moving prisoners still in place, Moore says he hopes the suit leads to a re-engineering of the Texas justice system.
But certainly a blind eye has been turned, and we're seeing a callousness that's unexcusable. These people have not been sentenced to death.
For the defenders, Dylan Collier, KSAT 12 News.
A spokesperson for TDCJ says the agency is reviewing the litigation, but has no comment at this time.
As Texas continues to emerge from its COVID-19 shutdown, Visit San Antonio has 30 conventions booked this year worth $174 million in revenue to this summer. But as Jesse Degollado tells us, they need the city's premier convention facility to reopen sooner than later.
Usually booked with back-to-back conventions, plans to safely reopen the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center are still in the works.
These are strategies that we are looking at right now as we speak.
Governor Abbott says Texas is looking at what other states are planning, while the city's first two major conventions here since March, now set for July, hang in the balance.
And the longer we wait for a decision, the likely that they may have to cancel.
If they don't know by June 1st, she says they'll add to the $128 million in revenue already lost since March after 28 other conventions canceled. Visit San Antonio believes the convention center should be treated like other public spaces that are being reopened. Yet here, Mate says,
they can manage the layout of the space. They can manage the flow of the attendees.
Mate says as soon as the governor releases the guidelines,
we could move forward with possibly hosting some conventions midsummer.
It also would take reopening many hotels that closed due to the lack of guests.
We know that many of our hotels are trying to open by mid-May to be prepared for June and July.
Mate says she remains hopeful.
I think when the time is right, we're going to be prepared.
Jesse Degollado, KSAT 12 News.
It is back to business in Port Aransas, the island community preparing for the upcoming Memorial Day weekend, and big crowds are expected. Business owners say they are excited for the crowds, but they're staying cautious about safety. Stephen Cavazos joins us live in Port Aransas now with what beachgoers can expect. Stephen.
Well, Steve, as restrictions continue to loosen around the state, many have come out here to Port Aransas to enjoy some relaxation, but business owners are also saying it's going to be a while before life here along the coast can get back to normal. Now, we're told that spring break brought in plenty of business and tourism back in March, but the economy took a hit after many local spots were forced to close for almost 2 months due to the outbreak of COVID-19. However, business is coming back here, and also bars are ready to reopen, but under Governor Greg Abbott's new guidelines. But some spots say it's going to be tough.
25% capacity is not sustainable for us, or really any business that has a different business model. So hopefully things stay safe and move forward.
Now, area hotels and condos have seen a good number of reservations, and people coming out to the community are also encouraged to follow social distance guidelines. Now, this isn't the first time that Port Aransas has been faced with adversity. Almost 3 years ago, Hurricane Harvey devastated the area, leaving a trail of destruction. But tonight on the Night Beat, business owners and city leaders tell us what they've learned from that experience as they face the COVID-19 pandemic. Reporting live in Port Aransas, Stephen Cavazos, KSAT 12 News.
Thank you, Stephen. San Antonio City staff presenting a framework today for how the city might be able to use a portion of its coronavirus relief money from the federal government to help the community. The COVID-19 Recovery and Resilience Plan allows for other possible funding as well. Everything suggested was built around 4 major pillars: workforce development, small business support, digital divide, or housing security. The mayor said he likes that the city is viewing this as a resilient strategy.
We're not trying to get back to the way things were. If we're doing it effectively, we're not shooting for a normal that means that, there's still 60,000 families in our food bank lines as the economy continues to ramp up, but that we're better than that.
Some of the proposed programs include cash assistance, grants for businesses, domestic violence prevention and intervention strategies, and additional homeless shelter options. The staff will present a budget next week for how the money would be divvied up.
It didn't take long for Attorney General Ken Paxton to respond to a federal court ruling over the use of mail-in ballots. The ruling was issued by federal Judge Fred Beery yesterday, and today Paxton filed an appeal with the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Late today, a federal appeals court put that ruling on hold. Paul Venema with what Paxton alleges in his challenge.
He said mail-in ballots are vulnerable to fraud. 2/3 of all the election fraud cases prosecuted by my office involve mail ballot fraud, also known as vote harvesting. Allowing widespread mail-in ballots will lead to greater fraud and disenfranchising lawful voters. Following yesterday's federal court ruling, Bexar County District Attorney Joe Gonzalez explained what that ruling means to voters.
What the federal court is saying is those that are concerned with potential or possible transmission and request a mail-in ballot are going to get one.
In Tuesday's ruling, Judge Fred Beery said the court finds the Grim Reaper's scepter of pandemic disease or death is far more serious than an unsupported fear of voter fraud. He added, indeed, if vote by mail fraud is real, it dictates that all voting should be in person. We reached out to Bexar County Elections Administrator Jackie Callanan to comment on the voter fraud controversy. She could not comment since she's named in the original lawsuit. Paul Venema, KSAT 12 News.
New at 6, there is no demographic more at health risk during the COVID pandemic than seniors. Add to that the fact that many of them are also the sole caregivers of their children. The burden is heavy. During this Older Americans Month, a local philanthropist took notice in a unique way.
Hi. Morning. For you today.
Oh, wow. Thank
She's
you.
already donated $1 million to feeding the hungry at Blessed Angels Community Center during the pandemic.
Hi. Oh, come here. You. Thank you, Miss Kim, for thinking of us. Hello.
But today, it got personal. $100 bills, a surprise bonus for the first 100 waiting for the weekly emergency food giveaway. No questions asked.
Hi. Here's for you today.
Oh my God. Oh,
Surprise.
Hi, Kim.
Hi.
This is for you.
That's for you. Thank you.
Some had been in line since 2:30 in the morning with mouths to feed and medicine to buy.
Big surprise. This is awesome. This is a big, big blessing. Light bill.
I want to change the world.
For Marion Thomas, who runs the food pantry and community center, these clients carry the biggest COVID burden.
These seniors are hurting. You know, they have to make the choices daily. Should I buy medication or should I buy food?
But at least for today,
Bye, thank you. God bless.
the only choice needed is to be grateful.
Now, at this food giveaway, more than 300 families received a trunk load of food in addition to diapers and pet food.
Certainly shows the need that is still out there by so many in our community. All right, it's 95 degrees out there. We're going to start coming down the temperature gauge here
slowly.
sometime?
Yep, slowly.
Okay, all right.
We slowly are, but it's the humidity that's going to remain constant. That's the thing. So it's going to feel muggy and warm no matter what. You can see some thin clouds starting to weasel their way into town here. That's because of some storm activity off to the west. And I do want to point out the aquifer is down just 0.2 of a foot today. We're still above the critical 660 level. We're at 665.4 and just a little bit below average for this time of year. As for the mold, moderate at 790, grass and pigweed are on the low end. We started the day at 73, then made it to 97 in the afternoon. I mentioned those thunderstorms out west. We'll first start to see some of the high upper level clouds move our way. And I am anticipating some of this to actually clip Del Rio here this evening. We could get some of the leftovers of that activity. I'll talk more about that coming up.
The San Antonio Food Bank faced with one of the biggest challenges during this pandemic. We'll tell you how they did it tonight.
All right, we are standing by for the daily briefing by City Mayor Ron Nierenberg and County Judge Nelson Wolf. Obviously, one of the things they update us every day is the case count. So let's go ahead and listen in.
And this is our COVID-19 update for the San Antonio community. Tonight, we have a total of 2,322 total confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Bexar County. That's an increase of 44 from yesterday. Of the 44 cases, 16 are community spread. 1 is from the jail, an inmate, and 8 are from other congregate settings, such as nursing homes and other long-term care facilities. There are 19 cases that are still pending investigation. Sadly, we do have another death to report this evening. She was a female, Hispanic, 50 to 59 years old, and was a resident of the Buena Vida nursing home. Please keep her family in your prayers. That brings us to a total of 63 deaths in San Antonio since the crisis began. Over in our hospitals, we have 82 COVID positive patients tonight. Another 10 are under investigation in our hospitals awaiting test results. 36 patients are in the ICU and 17 are on ventilators. We still have strong capacity in our local hospitals, 77% of our ventilators, as well as 31% of our staffed hospital beds currently available. I do want to note our new walk-up testing sites that will be coming online tomorrow morning. They will be operating from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The 2 sites will be located at the Palo Alto College Gym and another one at the Nellie Reddick Center on Sid Katz Drive. That's in the medical center. Again, those will be operating from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. You can get more information on testing sites at covid19.sanantonio.gov. Those 2 sites will have the capacity to test up to 175 people. First come, first serve. You don't need any appointment, and you also don't need symptoms to be tested. Just walk on up to one of those sites. Today, the City Council did have a discussion about our CARES Act resiliency program, and much like you've been hearing the judge and I talk about a coordinated plan for recovery, the City Council talked about our approach that will be guided by public health and safety, equity among our community, as well as leveraging all the resources that we have available to integrate local, state, and federal funds to get as much impact as we can into this recovery. And we focused on housing assistance as well as workforce training and small business support, in addition to bridging the digital divide, which has become extremely important coming out of this crisis. The council is expected to hear the final plans next week on Thursday, and then vote to ratify the plan that includes a budget adjustment on June 4th. So stay tuned for that. Judge Wolf.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, we didn't get to dance in the streets very long. Today, the Federal Appeals Court nullified the order by the District Court Beery, which would have allowed people to for mail-in ballots and the fact that we had the COVID emergency, but there still will be a hearing in those courts. It means just that you can't move right away. There'll be a hearing in the Federal Appeals Court, and then also, I believe they may have already started the one that will be at the Texas Supreme Court. So there's still a chance that something may come out of it, but a big setback today. The mayor and I did have a chance to speak with our legislative delegation today, and they're offering us support in a number of things. We brought up the fact that we have 69% of the COVID cases in the major metropolitan areas, the large 11 or so, and we only get 28% of state funding. So they're going to try to look into that, maybe have some of the legislative committees to see why there isn't more money going to where the real problems are. So that was a step forward. And then they're going to help us with respect to the problems we're having at the jail, where, we have over 200 inmates who we're still holding that should be going to the prison system, 90 some odd that should be going to the mental health hospitals. So anyway, they're going to help us on those things. So maybe we'll get a little help eventually. We got a good delegation, and I know they're on our side, and hopefully they'll be able to do some good. I did write a letter today to Louise Sines, who's the chief of staff for the governor. He's a friend, and he's represented the county before, so we know him. And we've asked them to really take a look at the Tobin Center. You're allowed to go to a number of different venues now, from movie theaters to churches that may, some of the mega churches have well over 3,000 seats in their churches. The Tobin Center has about 1,700, but they have a unique thing that nobody else has. We spent an extra $10 million in creating a unique sitting that can be adjusted, so they're able to actually physically remove some of the seats in between and actually physically remove rows. So it'll actually be a lot safer there than it will be anywhere else, and we're hoping the governor will take that in consideration. So it's about all I have.
Great. Thank you very much, Judge. And proof of life that will continue, if not slightly adjusted, as we all continue to do our part to slow the spread of the virus, but proof of life continuing in some ways. I've talked to you a little bit about the fire cadet graduations and other things that have been happening in our community. I do want to give two personal shout outs. Last week, my nephew, Julio Garcia, officially became a U.S. Marine. They were physically distanced. We couldn't go to his graduation ceremony, but congratulations, Julio. We're very proud of you. I also want to say congratulations to Nadia Bonner, who is the wife of Matt Bonner, the Red Rocket, who became a citizen today. The naturalization ceremony took place. I know there's another one tomorrow as well. So congratulations to Nadia. Of course, you can get the latest on COVID-19 by going to the website covid19.sanantonio.gov, or you can text COSAGov to 55000. As I mentioned, Dr. Kieran is here, as is the judge and myself, and we're happy to.
All right, that's the latest from City Hall with the mayor and the county judge. 2,322 positive cases so far in Bexar County. That is up 44 in the last 24 hours. And one new death to report. That brings the total to 63.
Yeah, the mayor also talked about some new testing sites. Right. We're going to try to get some clarification, because at 5 we reported there were 4 sites. Here he only mentioned 2, which is Palo Alto College Gym and the Nellie Reddix Center, open from 10 to 2. Again, no appointment needed and at no charge. He also mentioned that council is expected to hear plans on their recovery and resilience plans and take a vote on that next Thursday as well.
Yeah, we actually hope to talk to the mayor a little bit later in this newscast. Also, the county judge talking about the latest ruling to not expand the use of mail-in ballots, and also talked about some of the conversations he's having with state legislators about how he thinks metro areas should be getting more money in some of this recovery plans because they've had more cases.
And we'll stand by to see what happens with the Tobin Center
and
as
stand
well.
by to see what happens with the Tobin Center. They want some clarification there. All right, let's turn to the weather situation. And I know I'm getting impatient by wanting a little faster cool down than what we've had, Adam.
Yes, and this isn't going to be a quick, swift cool down, and not even much of a cool down, because we're not looking at a cold front really changing things. But a little shift in our weather pattern will bring some readings that are definitely lower than our 97 that we had today. We'll probably top out 10 degrees cooler than that as we get into parts of the weekend. So earlier this morning, 73. By the afternoon, a sticky and steamy 97. And you look at highs across the state. San Angelo, 104. Midland topped out at 101. Del Rio 99, nothing like the 108 Del Rio had yesterday. Now, speaking of Del Rio, let's go out to the west. We have some thunderstorm activity that's moving into town right now, moving through parts of eastern Mexico there and across the Rio Grande into Valverde County. This activity is going to continue to trek eastward. Now, depending on how it comes together and how it really performs over the next couple of hours, that's all going to basically influence our rain chances here in San Antonio later tonight. I do anticipate some of this to make it eastward into parts of Edwards and Kinney County, and then the potential for some leftovers here in San Antonio a little closer to midnight. This particular run of the computer model has a lot of that action dissipating and falling apart. Nonetheless, we're also watching some storms in West Texas, and some leftovers of either could give us a few little showers and maybe a clap of thunder late tonight and in the pre-dawn hours come tomorrow. Temperatures right now. You see this little area of green? Well, that's some rain cooled air detected in Mexico. We're for the most part in the 90s, and tomorrow we'll start the day at 73, make it into the lower 90s, some morning clouds, then afternoon sun, and basically nightly storm chances with enhanced storm chances as we get into the weekend on Sunday.
All right, thank you, Adam.
Larry has sports up next.
June 8th, yes. I'm ready for that. I've been talking to all the athletes at the school, like June 8th, like it's time, you know, it's the time to get back into, if you wasn't doing nothing, then there's a place you can to go do something for 2 months till we start up August 3rd. And it's time to get ready, it's go time.
Southside High School linebacker Micah Young can't wait for June the 8th in big board sports. Texas high school football players are all smiles because the UIL will allow limited strength and conditioning workouts in June. One day after Governor Greg Abbott announced that youth and professional sports may resume in Texas on May 31st, the University Interscholastic League says they are working with state officials to allow Texas high schools to begin limited athletic workouts and marching band activities starting June 8th. There's a lot of uncertainty of what will and won't be allowed during those limited workouts. The UIL says as soon as they have the details of that plan, they will release them to the schools, they say hopefully this week.
When these guidelines and restrictions come out, we're going to need every coach in the state of Texas to follow them to a T. We can't have any chances of a setback. We can't have any chances if somebody abuses that and we end up losing our fall seasons because of that, then we're not doing the right thing. So I think this is a great opportunity for all the athletes to show what they're really about. But even more so, it gives every coach in the state of Texas a platform to show great leadership through this time.
Clements head football coach Jared Johnston says he's happy for the kids, and starting June 8th, his football players can start bonding even better because you need a tight bond when you play in the same district such as Judson, Steele, Smithson Valley, and Wagner, now known as 27-6A.
But if you don't have a bond, if your team doesn't bond together, it's hard to win those big games. It's hard to win a district championship. It's hard to go and beat the Steels and the Judsons if you don't have a bond. And I felt like we've gotten to where every year I think that's one of our strengths is our bonds of our team. We really come together and when you miss 9 weeks of that, you're going into the summer. Those are things that we really got to get back to doing and just really just coming together back as a family and a team.
Coach Johnston thanks the Buffalo's superintendent, the administrative staff, principal, teachers, and everybody else who kept the school going in joint efforts to keep the kids successful academically. 2 weeks ago today, Southside High School linebacker Micah Young tweeted, "Let's go." He's verbally committed to UTSA. He's one reason why the Roadrunners class of 2021 recruits is rated #1 in Conference USA by 24/7 Sports. Micah had a fantastic junior season with 174 tackles. He's got a nose for the ball and says he likes to compete and hit. Once his high school football days are over with, Young will play college ball for Jeff Traylor.
He is a good coach. He the way he puts effort into showing love for the San Antonio kids. Yeah, I really like that about him. It makes me proud because not only do I carry my last name on my back, I'm carrying my school. I represent Southside all the way.
Micah says getting that scholarship to UTSA made his mother proud, and his long-term goal is to become a doctor.
And I like the Jimmy John's visor.
Yes.
He looked like he was freaky fast. in the sand there. So it all went together. It all went together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Larry. We'll be right back. With all 50 states now easing some form of restrictions, today House Democrats are pushing for the Senate to take up a new multi-trillion-dollar relief bill meant to help states and local governments recover from the pandemic. As ABC's Inez de la Catera reports, this is the fifth economic stimulus package passed by Congress, but Senate Republicans say it's dead on arrival.
Today on Capitol Hill, Democrats pushing for the Senate to consider a new multi-trillion-dollar economic relief bill passed by the House last week. The HEROES Act would provide funding for state and local governments.
This support for state and local, tribal and territorial governments is about honoring our heroes by enabling them to keep their jobs, to help save lives. I think public opinion will be very much our friend in all of this.
But the White House has threatened to veto the bill, and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has declined to take it up, arguing the bill contains unnecessary spending.
The Speaker's proposal was so unserious and so far left, it could not even unite her own conference.
This as the nation pushes ahead with plans to reopen. All 50 states now easing some form of social distancing restrictions after Connecticut did so today. And the CDC releasing new guidelines meant to help schools and businesses reopen. But the World Health Organization with some dire new numbers.
We still have a long way to go in this pandemic. In the last 24 hours, there have been 106,000 cases reported to WHO, the most in a single day since the outbreak began.
The WHO also critical of the president's admission he's been taking the anti-malaria drug hydroxychloroquine for over a week and a half.
Hydroxychloroquine, norchloroquine have been as yet found to be effective in the treatment of COVID-19. In fact, the opposite in that warnings have been issued by many authorities regarding the potential side effects of the drug.
This all comes as President Trump sent the WHO a letter threatening to pull U.S. funding from the organization unless it committed to, quote, major substantive improvements within 30 days. Inez de la Catera, ABC News, Washington.
So many nonprofits have taken a big hit during the coronavirus pandemic, but even when the money stops coming in, their work continues. That's why we're trying to help out with our KSAT community partners. This week, we're putting the spotlight on the San Antonio Zoo. The zoo depends 100% on ticket sales, guest spending, grants, and donations to operate. Your contribution will help provide resources towards the zoo crew so they can continue to take care of the animals. Just go to ksat.com/KSAT community if you want to participate. You can also find a list of other ways that you can help.
Take a live look outside, or maybe not a live look outside, but vamos a weather. How about that? 95 degrees out there, Adam.
Yeah, now all is quiet across the Alamo City and a good portion of South Texas, but you head out west and right along the border, that's where we have some thunderstorms and some stronger thunderstorms right now too, which have just become severe. So let's take a look at the radar, and you see it's quiet here. Soon we'll start to see some of the high thin clouds, the blow off clouds from the tops of those storms. And I do think we could get some of the leftovers of this activity later on tonight. But here are the severe thunderstorm warnings in effect. I mean, you go Amistad Reservoir area, Devils River area, southward through the city of Del Rio and down 277 here, that newest flashing box. That's the most recent and really just the most immediate severe thunderstorm warning that has been issued by the National Weather Service. And you look at this activity, we could have some very localized gusts up to 60 miles per hour along these storms, but also the potential for some large hail. And we could have hail up to 1 inch in diameter. That's the possibility here. And that's what we're seeing when we look at the hail product and the analysis. There is that potential right now just north of Del Rio. Now, still across the Rio Grande from Del Rio, there is a little bit of a hail core detected right now. It's not looking that impressive and large, but it could grow some more as it heads eastward. But it does look like that's going to continue to move eastward at about 20 miles per hour. Del Rio, you can expect it. this technology is saying about 7 p.m. I'd anticipate it a little before then, actually, as it moves eastward. And then Brackettville, whatever's left of it, by about 8:15 p.m. Okay, here's the wider view. So we have some severe storms out west. These are those days where you just always have to keep an eye on the situation, because those storms, depending on how they come together and how they sometimes organize, they can make it eastward. They often fizzle out before they make it here, but sometimes we get those leftovers, and we have that potential tonight, not just from the storms crossing the Rio Grande now, but also in West Texas, where we have some severe weather. So here's just one representation of a future cast, and you look at any number of high-res models, you'll get a completely different solution. But what it does is it indicates that potential of these storms holding together a bit. Before they fall apart, we could actually get clipped by them here in San Antonio later tonight. If so, probably around the midnight hour, give or take. And then just low clouds lingering around the rest of the night and to start the day tomorrow. So temperatures currently low to mid-90s, Floresville at 94, New Braunfels near 95. Hondo's at 95, Kerrville 92, and Del Rio right now at 95, but that's going to change quickly when you get a cold outflow and you get the rain cool there. Triple digits in Cotulla right at 100 degrees. But we also have the high humidity. It's sticky outside. Dew points near 70 and well into the 70s as you get closer to the coastline. And that's going to hang around. So we may see a little drop in our temperatures in the days ahead. But those dew points, they're going to stay up there. So 8 p.m., sunny and clear in San Antonio, but some storms along the border. Then a 20 to 30% chance of some of that leftover activity making it here to the Alamo City later on tonight as it falls apart for the most part. Temps falling through the 80s, then 70s. So we'll start the day tomorrow at 73. Top out in the lower 90s with some sunshine, especially midday and afternoon. The off chance of a rogue storm or two developing in the afternoon. And you know how we have that chance of a few storms tonight? Basically every night. Now through the weekend, we could get lucky by getting the leftovers of West Texas storms, giving us a splash of water. So there is that potential basically every night. As for the rest of the day and the daylight hours, we see those chances increase as we get toward the end of the weekend by Sunday and Monday. And there are those temperatures for you, Spreester.
That's what I'm looking at, the mid-80s. That's what I'm talking about.
Looks good. All right. Thanks so much, Adam.
Mayor Ron Nirenberg up next. It's a segment of the show we call Coronavirus Q&A, where we put some of our questions and some of your questions to local experts. And we are pleased to be joined by San Antonio Mayor Ron Nirenberg, as we are on most Wednesdays. Mr. Mayor, thank you for joining us right after the briefing today. You talked a lot about the resiliency plan. We've done a lot of coverage on the resiliency plan and the different facets of it. What is the biggest thing that you want people to know about this plan?
Well, that we have to recognize that the post-COVID world, in particular the post-COVID economy, is not and should not look like the pre-COVID-19 economy. The nature of our industries are going to change as a result of the response to this virus and what it's taught us about telework and commuting and the different skills that are necessary. And we want our people, taking a people-first approach to this recovery, we want our community to be able to thrive in that post-COVID world.
Are you concerned that the economy is going to look differently in San Antonio? You know, maybe not as tourist-based, for one example?
Well, it's certain that the hospitality and tourism industry that has been, one of the hardest hit will be a slower recovery because travel simply isn't going to happen overnight. So that is going to take some time to come on. But it's not so much that we're concerned that it's going to look different. It's that we know it's going to look different. And so our focus needs to be how can we cope? How can we adapt and make sure that our communities, not just San Antonio, certainly that's our focus here, but how communities can thrive in that environment.
Mr. Mayor, yesterday during the briefing, you and the judge mentioned this a little bit, and you talked about how San Antonio is doing better than a lot of other metro cities in our state. What do you attribute that to? Why do you think that is?
There's a lot of factors, and I'm sure books will be written about this, but I think one of the factors was that we were very early on engaged in an evacuation mission with Joint Base San Antonio Defense Department as well as HHS, in which we were receiving evacuees from the hard-hit COVID-19 areas. That got us to a heightened level of alert, which certainly was enhanced by the fact that the CDC released into our community someone who was COVID positive but was awaiting their test results. So that got everyone's attention, and we were able to proceed from there. But also, this is one of the communities that is most ready, most able on an ongoing basis every year to respond to disasters and emergencies. This is what we do. We do it very well. That's, of course, aided by the fact that this is a military city. This is a city that recognizes the value of public service and also the importance of us working together, a teamwork environment, in order to cope with some very serious challenges. That's our nature, and we work very well together. We always say that teamwork is San Antonio's secret formula. That's clearly on display in a pandemic response. It's about us understanding the responsibility that we have to each other in our livelihoods and our health and safety, and we've been working together. That's what San Antonians do. We're a cooperative, teamwork, compassionate community.
Yeah, we've seen it over and over again, whether it's hurricane relief, whether it's homelessness, whether it's, something like this pandemic. We're going to have more with Mayor Ron Nirenberg after this break.
We are back with Mayor Ron Nirenberg, who is joining us live from City Hall. And Mr. Mayor, I want to ask you about the orders that you extended yesterday. I noticed on social media there's a little bit of confusion. These are not stay-at-home orders. Can you clarify for our viewers what these orders entail?
Well, they're the same framework as they have been for the last month and a half, which is that unless you're engaged in one of the covered services activities that's outlined by the governor, we're supposed to be doing what we can to limit our exposure to others, limiting public gatherings and so forth. So that's the same framework where the things that are permitted under the governor's order are expressly and explicitly stated. So that's the area that we're in. The confusion is resulting from the fact that there's just a lot more activity going on, a lot more permitted activities. But keep in mind, the virus is still present. It's with us. We've been building up capacity to deal with it, to isolate it, to make sure that we know where it is. The testing has increased. But we still have to work together to make sure that we're containing it. So the effort still goes on. We're opening more things up. The governor's defined what those are, but we still need to do our part. And that's I think, the confusion is that people are seeing a lot more activities, but we are still fighting this virus.
Mm-hmm.
The next question I have may be in part because it's, high 90s, mid 90s, and maybe in part because I have kids at home. What's the latest with the pools reopening, the city pools?
It's a great question. So the governor's order does permit pools to be opened. Those facilities, public facilities that are local government managed facilities, though, they are given to the local governments to determine the timetable for opening. So one of the challenges with the phased opening of the Open Texas orders, which is what the governor has outlined, is that we're moving very quickly, and we need to be watching the data to make sure that each step of the opening doesn't create a spike in cases. So we're working on a plan right now to open the pools, but we're watching the data on each stage of opening before we actually open the pools to make sure that we don't have a spike in cases. The good news is, I foresee that our pools will be open as we get a little bit closer into the summer, the heat of the summer, but we're not quite there yet. We're working on that as we speak.
All right. Mayor Ron Nirenberg joining us live from City Hall. Thank you so much for your time.
We'll see you tonight at 9, and of course, we'll replay that interview on the Night Beat. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll be right back.
Thank you, guys.
The former owner of a troubled East Bexar County mobile home park is now in some trouble of his own. Sheriff's investigators have charged 69-year-old John Ripley with criminal mischief. Ripley, who owned and operated Jasper Mobile Home Park until last year, accused of removing a water meter from the property and installing piping that allowed him to divert more than $9,000 in water to the park. Yesterday, 2 other people were taken into custody in connection with an arson investigation at the property. Officials with the county fire marshal's office said they found 55 vacant and unsecured structures, so they are all believed to be fire hazards. Metro Health announcing 4 new temporary walk-up COVID-19 testing locations that are opening tomorrow, as a matter of fact. Each of the sites will be open through Saturday, May 23rd from 10 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. You can find more information on KSAT.com.
CVS Health says it is returning $43 million it received from the government for coronavirus relief. The company says it did not request the money. It was part of the CARES Act Provider Relief Fund. The Department of Health and Human Services says that the fund gives $175 billion to hospitals and healthcare providers. CVS Health hopes its share of the money will go to others in need.
Google once again using its homepage to honor important cultural figures of the past. Today, the Google Doodle highlights the accomplishments of Israel, or is, Kama Kawivolde. The animation features the Hawaiian singer-songwriter's beloved rendition of Over the Rainbow. He's widely referred to as the voice of Hawaii and is credited for ever changing the face of Hawaiian music. Today would have been his 61st birthday.
Thanks for watching the news at 6.
See you back here on the Night Beat at 10 and, of course, online at 9.